And now we see the great acceleration. I hope everybody can see it now and hear me well.
Yes.
Okay, great. So we have the socioeconomic trends, as I have already mentioned, and then we have the Earth system trends, which are affected by the socioeconomic trends. And I highlighted 3 of them, which are important for this symposium, which is domesticated land. So the use of land has increased, and there is a degrade of the terrestrial biosphere. And we have an increase in nitrogen. And there's much more, but those 3 just to highlight. And on the very top, you see the greenhouse gases. And the increase of those, and we see that they're tremendous, means that we're currently in the situation of a climatic change that is already happening. And you see here the parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And the current level is way above what we used to have for millennia. And this means that we're changing ecosystems on our planet, and therefore actually the base of what we use and need for a thriving life. And here you see an overview of the direct drivers, which are affected by the indirect drivers. And the direct drivers that change ecosystems of terrestrial lands, of the freshwater and the marine, land and sea use changes that we have done, direct exploitation we are doing, the climate change I have just mentioned, pollution and invasive species. And all this means that we have a decline in nature, which is a problem. And we can observe that the perception of us humans with the relation of nature that we are having has changed throughout the last decades. So in the 60s, we were more of perceiving nature for itself, being out there and the humans doing their own stuff on their side. Then it changed into nature despite people. We were aware, becoming aware that we are actually doing harm to nature. And that nature still is out there even though we are harming it. And we realized in the 2000s that nature is important for us and that actually we should protect ecosystems and that they provide us with ecosystem services, as we have just heard in session 4. And now we have entered this state of realizing that people and nature belong together, that we are part of nature, and that we should focus on the resilience of ecosystems and how they can adapt, and that we should be aware of social ecological systems when you talk about how people interact with nature. So question is, where do we want to go? And here you see a picture of the Sustainable Development Goals. And it's a depiction that is a bit different from the ones you normally see. We have the bottom line, the base, and that's a biosphere. And I highlighted 2 crucial points for this symposium, which is life on land on the one hand side and climate action on the other hand side. And if these 4 aspects, we have clean water and life below water as well, if they're not set and if they're not doing well, all the rest that builds up above this can be forgotten, so to say. So we need to make sure that the base is kept stable, intact. So we need to really do something fast within the next decades. And here we see possible future pathways that we could go on to in order to get a future that is actually prosperous for all of us. And you can see on the top that we should think of social and the ecological system as belonging together and being co-developing, influencing each other. So if we do not harm the environment, actually the environment is doing good for us as well. And you see here a safe operating sustainable space, but then you can see different pathways. We won't have only one, there will be several ones because the world is big. We have many different regions. And such scenarios you can also see in the IPCC report, which I have not shown here. And one of those pathways, and this is just an illustration to give you an idea and an example, is the Lower Saxonian pathway. And this just came into being, and it's a collaboration of the water sector, the nature protection sector, and the agricultural sector. And they want, within the next years, establish a collaboration of how to reach a positive, sustainable future that protects water and biodiversity. And they came up with milestones that they want to reach. Now, how do we get to such futures? the world we live in is really complex, and normally we tend to take simple solutions, but we might need to take complex solutions in order to really get issues of sustainability and climate change solved. And a colleague of mine from the Stockholm Resilience Center, Maya Schlüter, she says that a successful transformation depends on factors such as preparedness for change and enabling environment, stewardship, and capacities to navigate these phases. So that means that we need people who are ready for change and mindsets of people that envisage change and transformation, that we have rules and laws and values that are being transformed already in order to give this environment that enables change. And we need people to take responsibility. And also we need an overview of what is going on in order to understand how to govern and how to guide us through the transformation. I brought you a picture of a tipping point, and you have probably heard of the tipping points in the climate system and in the Earth system. There are also social tipping points, and they are reached when a crucial mass of people has achieved a certain goal and has actually changed behavior. This can happen in an area, in a sector, this can happen in a part of the society. It's quite hard in the beginning, so you need to gain momentum, you need to be prepared and get the power. But once you have tipped this point, the system that you're in has changed and will continue changing. And this is a picture I want to give and pass on to you to consider in your work. Now, to get this change going, there's a nice concept which is called the seeds of the good Anthropocene. And those seeds are initiatives that already exist today and that can exist at different levels, and they all have something to do with sustainability. So on the top left, you see economic, social, and ecological, those three dimensions of sustainability. And those seeds, those initiatives already do a change today and making the world more sustainable, be it in industry, be it in agriculture, be it in the healthcare system. The idea is that those seeds grow and that they replicate and that they actually distribute and that they make people aware of what they are doing, and also make people change their values and the things that they value. And it would be the best if those different seeds would link where it makes sense and could create synergies and grow even bigger. Could be that some seeds will not succeed, as in your garden, if you have planted a little seed and it does not come into being. But mainly the idea is that they will prosper and that they will then grow into the future, so that the future is already starting today and you can foster it by cultivating those seeds. Now you see that step second is to scale up, to scale out, and to scale deep those seeds. Now, what does this mean? Scaling up means that you impact laws and policy. So you change institutions at the level of policy, and you want to change the ideas that people have about how to govern resources. Scaling out impact greater numbers. So you want to replicate, as I just said, you want to disseminate, and you want to increase the number of people who are already engaged in such initiatives, and you want to get more people on board. And finally, to scale deep, you want to impact how people perceive the world, the cultural roots, the relationships we have among each other, with a certain project, with a resource, with an urban area, for instance, the cultural values we attribute and the beliefs we have. So you really want to hit the hearts and the minds of the people. To bring this together, this depiction shows us that we are not just acting in a void. We are embedded in rules, we are embedded in structures, and there are higher level institutions that influence lower level institutions, and sometimes we might feel a bit hindered, like there's no money, there's no political will, the EU is giving certain policies that the member states rely upon, and this is all influencing what we can do on the ground, and we are actually incapable of doing much. But what I also want to bring along here is there is bottom-up activities, and they can shape policy directions. And more importantly, they hold decision makers accountable. And where do these people come from? Well, they are in the room. I can't see you right now, but throughout the last days, you have exchanged your ideas of what you are doing currently on Peatlands. And just like you, there are so many other interest groups out there that make their claims, and they have already established their seats. So the projects that you have been talking about for the last 2 days, they are these seats. And if you group together and if other sectors as well group together, you can make this change and bring in new ideas and show the political actors on the upper levels what is possible, what is feasible. And then nation states themselves also shape international politics. So if a nation state is ready to do and push transformation forward, this can also spill over to other member states. So the final message is spread the word about your actions, connect with others who follow a similar pathway. Think systemic. It's important that all sectors are involved and are heard if we want to achieve a transformation of agriculture and the way that peatlands are managed. And finally, think of how you can scale up, scale out, and scale deep the project, the approach, the business idea that you're currently working on. Thank you so much for your attention. And here we have some references, so the slides can be shared and then you can check all the references that I have cited.
Yes.